These comparisons have been brewing in my system for quite some time, so I decided it's time to finally let it all out. This is Versus for Kane Lynch 1 and Kane Lynch 2. Say what you want about Kane Lynch. Now I'll tell you what I think. This not quite a series yet is criminally underrated. Why does everyone rip on it so hard? Rip on games worth destroying like Duke Nukem Forever or the latest Barbie game. But since no one really seems to be talking about them anymore, I figured now would be a good time to emerge from the shadows and shine some light on these games. Let's start with Kane Lynch Dead Men, the first in the series. Some of you may not know that K&L are developed by the same guys who did the Hitman games, and K&L are even in glimpses of Hitman Absolution. Pretty neat. And tidy. And wholesome. Whatever. The story is that Kane has been removed from his family due to his criminal life. His yearning to love his daughter and to see her, make her happy, is growing by the day. One of the opening lines is pretty memorable.
The only feeling I have left is regret. Regret that I'll never get to know you.
Kane is being shipped with the other prisoners to jail, but Lynch is part of a plan to break out. The writing for the most part is fairly well done, but they seriously got out of hand with the cursing.
What the fuck is going on?
I strongly advise you to do what you're fucking told.
Who the fuck are you to talk to me like that?
We find out that Lynch was just a con man hired to bring Kane in the people he had a debt with. So they have to work together pulling off a job to relieve the debt. Everything goes kablooey as the story gets more and more chaotic. Every section is tenser than the last, and it really fills you up to the brim with adrenaline. Quite literally.
Your son! That's what! Make talk to them! Kane, stop! Your daughter!
About halfway through the story, Kane's wife and daughter make an appearance, and it's actually quite emotional. I've got attached to Kane at this point, so I feel with him. On the outside, he may seem like a homicidal maniac just pushing people to the edge, but he's got inner demons with these actions, and he truly cares about his family more than anything. He even says he'll eventually get killed like it'll be a good thing, as reassurance to his family. And we don't love anything more than man's struggle. Gameplay is a standard third-person shooter and works fine, but feels floaty and unpolished. Kane snaps to cover when you face him an exact angle instead of pushing a button. The recoil for the guns is a little bit unrealistic. You gotta hold it where it is, fixing it every millisecond, or else it's up and away. One nice feature is the destructible surroundings, which heat up battles very nicely. The gun selection is magnificent in my books, with tons to choose from, even varying through stages. Sadly, though the first and second acts are brilliant, the third act drags a little bit. But boy oh boy, what's that? A this or that ending? Holy cow. Yes, at the very end of the game, you have two choices on how to wrap things up, and neither is morally correct or happy. It's freaking genius. I'm not kidding. Both options are incredibly memorable endings for a game, or any story in that matter. I love it. Hard. And now we move on to Kane Lynch 2, Dog Days. This was such a disappointment after everything that came from the first game. I had high hopes because the gameplay is better, the animation is smoother, and the visuals were grittier. It didn't deliver what the first game did, though. It didn't deliver. It took itself on a ride, but I didn't get my package. So instead of an imaginary video game camera, the game runs with a camera that is actually filming all the happenings in Shanghai. This was a key feature that got me interested in the sequel. Great idea, but it didn't pan out well. Running made the camera sway back and forth. Some people even criticized it for making the player dizzy or nauseous. I didn't experience this phenomenon, but I found myself refraining from running because it made things harder to see. Also, if they would have made a cameraman a solid character, that could have added so much more depth into the story. For instance, they could have been filming a documentary and it goes horribly wrong. I just came up with that on the spot and it would have made the story leagues better. There's hardly a story this time around and I was so upset with that. It jumps around, trying to recreate the chaos that the first one had, and yes, things get out of hand sometimes, but there's no real continuity. It feels forced. One scene, which is teased in the very beginning of the game, tries so hard to be gritty and disturbing, but it ends up almost laughable. I'll admit it disturbed me when it was teased at the beginning, but after everything was said and done, and it had to carry on the game from after that point, it was really ridiculous. Instead of following up with an ending that was decision-based with huge ramifications like the first game, it just ends abruptly. It's not even worth analyzing because it's done so poorly. I hated it! But did I have fun with the game? Yes, I did. Like I mentioned earlier, the gameplay is better. A whole lot better. New buttons for new actions, and there's even a button for going into cover. The gunplay feels oh so right. It is beyond fixing what was wrong in the first one. But that's honestly all it has going for it. I think it's obvious to say that Kane Lynch 1 far surpasses its sequel. I love it so much, and I always try to show it to people who have never heard of it or push people to give it a second chance. You might ask, why do I love it so much? Well, I'll explain. This was one of the first mature games I got my hands on. I tried for years to show that I was mature enough to play games with worse content, and it took ages. I got my hands on Kane Lynch when I was still in the process of trying, and it blew my mind. The pervasive language, the blood splatters when you get a headshot, the gunfights with hordes of cops, the heartbreaking story. It was all kind of new to me. This game serves as part of a stage in my life and will always be somewhat nostalgic to me. I was hoping that the sequel would re-establish that, but it just didn't. I'll always have the first one though, and it's a shining example to me of what video games are all about. Embarking on new adventures, living someone else's life, going beyond the boundaries that you have set for yourself. Not to mention looking back on how it made you feel and how it got you to where you are today. That's why the first Kane Lynch wins. Hey you. Yeah, you. I like your face. No, not your face, your face. Why don't you go on over to my channel and subscribe? And while you're at it, if you want to donate a game, send me a message and I'll mention your name in its review. Thank you.